Radio.
Let us, without further ado, go straight to Pauline Latham, Conservative MP for Mid Derbyshire. Pauline, very good morning to you.
Morning.
I have to say my heart sank slightly this morning when I saw the front page of the Times in which it says lockdown lifting set to be delayed by a fortnight. I mean, it seems to me that we've got two conflicting stories going on here. We've got that one, plus we've got the Matt Hancock suggestion that basically admissions to intensive care have more or less dropped to nothing. Death rates have dropped pretty low as well. And the infection rates only seem to be affecting people who haven't had the vaccine.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting is we now hear about the death rates, but it says within 28 days of having tested positive for corona. It doesn't say they've died from coronavirus,
right?
So they've died with it. So we're not actually even certain how many of the deaths over the last few months have been from COVID. So I think, as there were only, one yesterday, and 4 the day before, I mean, that is so low. Now, obviously, I don't want anybody to die, but death is part of life.
Yes.
But I want to know is how many people are dying from cancer or heart attacks who aren't getting the treatment because people are not available to treat them because they're dealing with COVID. And those people, we should be looking at those now. COVID has been terrible and we've all put up with it. But I think enough is enough and we need to be allowed out to have a proper life.
Yes, I think that's absolutely right. Because if you do sort of follow this mantra of data, not dates, you know, the data surely is showing that it's a lot better than it was, and there's absolutely no reason to not go forward as you planned on June the 21st.
Yes, I mean, I'm sure lots of people would like to go on holiday, whether it's in this country or elsewhere. But if we cannot release people from the final phase of the roadmap, as Boris Johnson talked about it being irreversible, we must continue with it, because unless there's a big spike, we cannot be frightened of another variant that might appear at some point in the future. We can't do that. We've got to live life now. And for those people coming towards the latter years of their life, they don't have many years left, and they actually want to go out and see friends and family and do normal things, and that's just not being allowed yet.
And that is the thing. I mean, we get people on the one hand saying, well, of course, you know, the lockdown's not really that bad now. You can surely put up with it for another couple of weeks. But for an awful lot of businesses that I talk to, Pauline, and you'll be the same in your constituency, you know, 2 weeks is a lifetime, and a month would be even more ridiculous.
It would. And, you know, hospitality businesses have suffered enough, but wedding businesses have had virtually no business for 15, 16 months. They are desperate to get open, and you don't plan a wedding and open it up in a week or two. It can be 2-3 years before people have their weddings, and we've already seen them postponed, and therefore the next stage is that they'll be booked, but people are frightened of booking because of this uncertainty. Although Boris said it was a roadmap and we would stick to it, all this uncertainty that's being put out by ministers and by PH England and all the NHS people, it's giving so much uncertainty to business. And the one thing after all this time is they desperately need certainty.
Well, that's right. And I always say to people, you know, never mind the people who want to go on holiday, who sometimes are criticised because people go, well, why would you want to go on holiday? Well, people want to go on holiday because they've been locked in their houses for almost a year. They've been unable to go anywhere. They might feel a bit stressed out, or they might have been working rather hard. And we were hearing this morning that lots of NHS workers are feeling as if they're burned out. Well, what do you think would suit them now? A holiday would be rather nice in Portugal, which wouldn't be bad. But of course, now you can't go there.
No, it just seems that there were so few cases in Portugal. It was overreaction to make people dash home before 4 o'clock this morning. And I think we've got to let people get out. And we've got to let them have holidays. I mean, I've got a situation where I've got a brother who lives in Spain. He's got dementia, and he's getting to the point where he won't remember me unless I go and see him. But I'm not allowed to.
Right.
And I haven't seen him. I mean, we do Zoom things, but he doesn't really understand that.
Right.
He has to
it's not the same, is it? I mean, you know, much as I enjoy talking to you on Zoom, Pauline, it's not the same as being in the same room.
No, and he feels that, and I want to see him again before he forgets who I am. And I can't do that. And I'm not going to be the only person in that sort of situation. I'm desperate to go out there, but I can't. And lots of people will feel like that. Even if they don't go away in this country, they want to travel, and they want to get away and sit on those beaches. I mean, as you say, NHS staff, that would just do them so much good to have a couple of weeks sitting on a beach.
Yeah.
Would reduce the stress and make them feel much better.
Of course it would, absolutely. Plus, it's normality. It's normal life that people crave. It's not abnormal to want to go on holiday. It's not abnormal to want to take your children, away for a week or two in the sunshine, where they can play around on the beach. And where I saw pictures of Mallorca Beach yesterday, a beach in Mallorca, completely deserted. It looks bizarre. There's nobody there.
It is bizarre, and the businesses out there need us, need our money just as much as businesses in this country need it, because we are travellers by the fact that we live in England, we're in an island, and we like to move about more than many other countries. So, I'm great that we're doing so well in holidays in this country, and I'm sure it's doing those businesses that have been closed down no end of good. But hospitality isn't just at the seaside. Hospitality is right across the country. But it's airlines as well. I've got Rolls-Royce aero engines locally to me. They are struggling because nobody's flying, and they make their money out of servicing the planes that fly. But of course, there haven't been any for a year. So, there's all sorts of businesses are struggling and really do need to get back to normality. And it's summer when we're outside so much more. Last summer, there were hardly any deaths. Yes, they peaked in the winter, but we've got the vaccine now. Nobody talks about it being the vaccine that's saving us. And yet at the beginning, they said, let's vaccinate the first 9 groups. Well, we've done that.
Yes.
We've double done that now. So why can't we open up?
Although, bizarrely, Matt Hancock is one of those people who says continually that the jabs are working, that we have clearly got this coronavirus thing beaten. And then some other bod pops up, usually Chris Whitty or Sir Patrick Vallance, who say, oh, yeah, but, what about what's going on over there? There's an Indian variant, or there's a Delta variant, or there's some other variant, and there might be another variant we don't know about. Well, there might be all kinds of things that we don't know about. You can't actually legislate for what you don't know.
You can't. And we have to stop doing that and stop frightening people. People don't have to go out if they don't want to, but those of us who would like to go out and do normal things should be allowed to now, because we cannot keep frightening the population to staying at home forever.
No, of course not. And also the other side of the tourism coin, Pauline, for me, is the companies in this country who are suffering because there's no tourism incoming, because parts of this country rely completely on it. For example, places like the Peak District, places like Scotland, even places like Wales. I mean, I've seen a tweet this morning from a guy in Scotland who says, sadly, he's lost his job in golf tourism due to the lack of incoming visitors. It really is a sad state of affairs for my friends and colleagues within the industry. Because if you think about it, I mean, I think we're told there's £21 million a day that we're losing out on because there's nobody coming from America to either play golf or to stagger around Windsor or to, have tea in Cornwall. There simply is no tourism business at all.
And London, if you look out of the windows, there's no traffic. There's nobody walking about. There's hardly anywhere. There's a lot of cyclists going to work, but there's hardly any tourists walking about because they're not here.
No.
That's devastating for the whole tourism industry in London, which relies so much on overseas people.
Yeah, it really is quite extraordinary. A couple of things to mention to you. We're going to be talking about these a bit later on in the show, of course, as well. But the business of the England Cricket Board going after young men who may have made rather ridiculous tweets when they were teenagers. I see that they've now found another one who may have been doing what Ollie Robinson did, only this time when he was 15. I mean, it seems as though we've found ourselves a new rabbit hole to dive into.
Yes, I mean, why don't we just sort of tell people who are 5 that have access to phones that, we'll get them later when they're old. I mean, it's ridiculous because we cannot say that what they tweeted at 15 is what they think now. It's highly unlikely. And if they haven't done it since then, or they've apologised for it because they were young, and, how many people at 15 don't make mistakes? That's how you learn. And this is the learning curve for them. And people have to recognise that social media does haunt them. But, 15, for goodness sake, they were kids. They weren't adults. If they'd done that as an adult, fine, discipline them. But not for something that happened when they were little.
No, I think that's right. And I just want to ask your opinion as well on the news that just broke before we spoke to you, Pauline, about Wayne Couzens, police officer who's pleaded guilty to the kidnap and rape of Sarah Everard today in the Old Bailey. He's also admitted to basically killing her. He hasn't entered a plea on that yet. But I suppose from the family's point of view, this might avoid a rather long and drawn-out trial.
I hope so, because, that must be so hard for families in that situation. It's bad enough to lose a child, but to lose one in those circumstances, when you're not with them, you don't know really quite what happened to them, how they were. It must be devastating. It must be one of the worst things in the world for the parents and the rest of the family, who will live with that for the rest of their lives. I mean, I hope that it does give them some peace, that he's admitted to it and we don't have to go through a long rigmarole of having to prove it. Because sometimes these court cases go on for years and years, and it's just a knife in the wound for the parents and family.
Yes, and speaking of which, Alberto Costa is going to be on with us later on today. He's obviously very, very upset at this news about Colin Pitchfork, the double murderer from his constituency, who murdered 2 schoolgirls. I mean, it's hard to believe the parole board think that this guy is releasable, isn't it?
Well, I think so. I think we need to take another look at what's happening with parole boards, because I don't believe that they always make the right decision. And I think with something as horrific as this, the poor girls, I mean, he should not be let out, not even for day release, in my view, because somebody that's done that twice, not once, but twice, I just don't believe will ever be rehabilitated.
No, I don't think so. And it appears that he's been out shopping. It appears that he's been released on several occasions to go outside of the prison walls. But it's almost like there's 2 different mindsets going on, isn't there? There's the people who work in prison reform and people who work in sort of, victim support. And then there's people who work on behalf of those who have offended. And, there doesn't seem to be any common language going on, because as you say, somebody who commits that kind of violent crime, I'm not sure you could ever be rehabilitated from that.
No, I mean, I do agree we should be trying to rehabilitate everybody in prison, but there are certain categories where I just find it very hard to believe that they have found any sort of remorse and can be trusted, which is actually what it's about. They may have found remorse, but can they ever be trusted out there with the public and with other young girls, teenagers, who they will have access to because people walk about and he would be walking about. So I do feel strongly, I would certainly back Alberto Costa, because we can't let these people out.
No, exactly right. And finally, Pauline, just back to the lockdown situation. How is it in your neck of the woods in terms of how people are behaving? Because in parts of London, certainly it does seem as though many people have kind of just moved on themselves and decided, right, we're just going to go out a lot more. The weather's pretty nice. We're going to go and sit outside a bar, sit outside a cafe, sit outside a restaurant. Sit in a park, go to the beach. The beaches were busy at the weekend. I mean, I'm quite encouraged by that.
Yes, I am. I mean, locally, we haven't had any deaths for a while. The hospitals hardly have a COVID patient in them. So, it's pretty safe in Derbyshire. I mean, there's always been the odd little place where a school might have a bit of an uptick in cases, but it's gone down so much compared with this time last year. That I think we are pretty safe and we should be letting people out. And, mental health is talked about a lot, but it's true. People are getting frustrated and angry at not being able to do what they would like to do. Not extreme things, just being normal. And they just want to go out and about. And I feel the same, to be frank. I hate all of this. I hate the mask wearing. And people will social distance in certain situations, but not in all of them.
No.
But if they're outside, does it matter?
No, exactly right.
It doesn't spread it outside.
And as Julie Hartley-Brewer said to George Eustace this morning, caution is all very well, but it's not cautious for everybody to do it this way because it's actually dangerous for a lot of people.
I mean, I've had 2 vaccines 5 weeks ago, my second. I feel completely safe. Now, probably I'm not completely safe. If I came up against the Indian variant and I caught it, I might be ill, but I don't think I'd die.
There's a pretty good chance that you wouldn't be very ill, though.
No, exactly, because they've proved that the vaccine is working. And either they've got to say the vaccine's working, therefore we're going to do the 4th step and let people out, or the vaccine isn't working and we've got to think again. But they're not saying that because they are agreeing that the vaccine works.
And if the vaccine works, then surely we should all be working as well. Not from
Yes.
home either. Pauline, thank you very much indeed. Pauline Latham, Conservative MP for Mid Derbyshire, talking